Hello, I'm your host, Joe Langton. This is Automating Success. Today, we have the pleasure of having Michael Praeger on the show. Michael, go ahead and introduce yourself and explain to the people listening to the show who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and excited to be here today. Mike Praeger, CEO and co-founder of AvidXchange, and AvidXchange is a software company that actually automates the accounts payable and payment process for middle market companies. So today we do this for over 10,000 middle market companies and their suppliers, mainly in the U.S. and North America. And what we're excited about is the impact that we have to customers in terms of really eliminating all their paper invoices, all their paper checks, and really creating, a phenomenal experience related to, not only eliminating paper, but then the labor components that go with it to really allow them to be, their staffs to be more value added to the process, do higher level work, and have higher impact for their organizations.
It's ironic in that intro how you explained that. I was literally just on the phone. I use a fractional CFO, and he's a good friend of mine. His name's Gabe. And I was just on the phone with him, and he was talking about systems we have. And I was like, yeah, we don't have good systems. And literally doing this podcast, your system may work for
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need to introduce us to Gabe. We'll take care of him.
Yeah, no, he probably should. Well, okay, so behind every business comes the idea, right? So, what was the idea behind AvidXchange and what motivated you to start it in the first place?
Yeah, so a little bit of my background is I started actually my career in kind of the venture capital kind of arena in Boston with Summit Partners back in the early 90s, and then left and have kind of run three different software companies, two of those that I kind of founded myself before AvidXchange, and so AvidXchange I founded in 2000. So we've been at this now kind of 20 going on 23 years. And the original thought process was I went to dinner one night with a good friend of mine here in Charlotte that ran a commercial real estate company, and he was telling me about his problems with accounts payable. Whenever he needs an invoice, he can't find it. He can't get their suppliers paid on time. It's kind of a quagmire. And he said, in today's world, this is 20 years ago, right? There must be some software solutions out there, Mike. You know about technology. Can you recommend us anything? And I said, well, geez, I don't know anything about accounts payable, but let me spend some time with your CFO and learn more about the business process. And did that, and then kind of realized it's like it was really kind of a screwed up process that he had. And I'm like, well, I wonder if it's just this, my friend Daniel, or is this common across lots of different companies? And found out, it was common across lots of different companies, but our current business was started solely around solving, the accounts payable process for real estate companies. And dial forward now, kind of 20 plus years, we have, north of, 9,000 customers in the U.S. And we are, operate, we focus in, kind of 8 core vertical markets, and real estate just being one of those, along with serving kind of the horizontal, kind of lens of the middle market. And so it's, and there's a great lesson in kind of, entrepreneurism that I learned, kind of in all my prior examples. And that is there's a lot of power of starting in a very narrow focused area in terms of solving a particular business problem in one particular use case and get really good at that before you start expanding to, kind of other use cases or other geographies, things like that. And I think, I do a lot of coaching for entrepreneurs. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they try to, boil the ocean, day one. And there's not a lot of successful companies that emerge from doing that approach. You get really good at solving a very specific problem. And then you kind of identify how can I multiply, kind of those learnings and that problem across, tangential or other type of, similar problems that we could solve.
Well, and I have a similar kind of background to that, talking about getting good at one thing and expanding, because my entrepreneurial journey started similar to time of yours. 2000, you said 1999, I started a snow removal company, which is the shirt I'm wearing it right now.
And that must have been out in Illinois.
Illinois. Yeah, we got really good at snow, self-performing snow company, and then we transitioned into landscaping. Then once we got into commercial landscaping, we got into irrigation. Then once we mastered that, we got into the nursery business. So you're right, Michael. Like to find one thing, grow it, then that vertical becomes profitable, and then you actually have your own capital. You said you were started in I think venture cap or in a private
Yeah,
equity field.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So for me, I've been fortunate. I've never needed it at this point stage of my life because I get one sector really profitable and then I can grow the next,
Yep.
So to people that, maybe wouldn't understand. So you say, you're in the real estate market. So what type of collections? I mean, when I think real estate, I think, okay, somebody buys a house and they pay for it, right? But
Yeah.
Expand on the type of where you're collecting money in that market.
Yeah. So 100% of our business is focused on business to business activity. So in the case of real estate, these are our customers are commercial real estate operators, ones that are managing commercial office buildings, multifamily apartment developments, student housing developments, industrial properties as examples. And they have to manage all the maintenance and operations of these facilities. So from paying the utility bills to paying the landscaper, we're probably paying you, Joe. Actually, you're probably one of the suppliers in our network of now approaching 1 million suppliers, so we kind of focus on everything related to businesses paying other businesses. We do, and we call that the accounts payable process versus kind of the accounts receivable process, which is the intake of money, which we do not do. So if you think another kind of a simpler example is kind of what, say ADP does for, say payroll is what we do for managing all the other expenses of a business other than payroll.
So I'm really glad, Michael, that you actually did that, because that makes a lot of sense. And for most people that are on this, listening to this, that I think that you did a really good job breaking that down. So now that you've made sense of that for me, when you started it, did you have any idea? I mean, from my research, it looks like you have roughly 1,500 people right now. I mean, did you ever think in 2000 when you started it, you'd end up where you are currently today?
Yeah, no, the answer is, absolutely not. I mean, again, when we got started, we were trying to solve a very specific problem in a very specific, kind of a niche market related to commercial real estate operators. And then, kind of the business kind of kept expanding related to our opportunity. So we said we got really good at doing this. And, part of the story that I left out is we actually got started not only in commercial real estate, but also only in working with companies that use one very specific accounting system, which is called MRI software. And then we started expanding to other real estate companies that used other types of software like Yardi and some other the leading, kind of accounting systems for real estate. And then when we got really good at that, we said, okay, let's move into kind of tangential industries like construction, like homeowner association or condo association management, and we kind of kept expanding that way. And then, along the ways, we kind of, realized that, hey, it's kind of, interesting that literally close to 100% of our customers are doing this for the first time. Like, we're not displacing another system that they're using. We're displacing paper invoices and paper checks. And wow, like, are we the only ones doing this? Are we the leaders in this market? And the answer was, there were some people, kind of chipping around the edges, but we were the leader in kind of that middle market segment. And so we just continue to leverage that, and then kept adding kind of features to the platform. And then, at the beginning, we were just focused on automating the invoice side, and we actually didn't do the payment side. And then, in 2012, we launched the payment side of the business. And so I think it's, we always got good at what our core competence was. And then along with that, listening to customers. And that's one of the things I always, kind of encourage, even our teams today. We have this bad habit of, putting people, in a conference room and brainstorming about what we think the customer needs. And I'm like, guys, this is great, but like, why don't we all go out and visit a customer and ask them what they need, and try and triangulate, what we think they need. And so, I would say every good idea that has turned out to be kind of a key kind of leverage point for us in growing the business has 100% of them have come from the customers.
Well, and it sounds like, so, from my end, when I think about billing, even when I think of a snow event, people think the most grueling thing is plowing the snow. The most grueling thing is actually billing the event,
Right.
sorting through the data and billing it all. So as you're talking to me, Michael, it's like my brain is like drifting off, being like, I wonder if they could help us automate that billing process, because there's a lot of data that comes in and has to get sent out. But hearing what you said, you're just so people understand the way I see it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing about cash flow, and even when you talk about AR, I think the biggest mistake companies make is they give people a longer time to pay their bill by taking too long to send the invoice, right? So at the end of the day, you close that billing cycle, and don't let them stretch farther than their billing time. Is that true? And you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so one of the things is, so we give our customers the tools, the software tools to be able to, what I would say, communicate with their suppliers in the most efficient way. The customers are still in control of the timing of it, right? In terms of, kind of when they initiate payment and things of that nature. But with our tools, yes, they have the ability to shorten those cycles. The second thing that we've done, when this is kind of one of the newest things that we've launched in recent years, is a product called the Invoice Accelerator. And that is, kind of, giving the suppliers the power really for the first time to get paid when they need to get paid. Because right now the dynamic in really kind of all of businesses, the person that's paying the invoice has all the control. They decide when they're going to pay it. And the suppliers are kind of at the mercy of, when they get paid. Now you have big suppliers like a Walmart of the world and others who, are, because of their size, they can actually dictate more, payment terms. But the average, small business, or the average, kind of supplier, today doesn't have the Walmart type of power. And so they're at the mercy of when, the buyer customer is paying, that particular invoice. And what we've done with Invoice Accelerator is kind of flip it on its edge, or on its head, I should say. And so now suppliers can determine, hey, I know I submitted an invoice and it has net 30 payment terms, but I really need that cash for either payroll or to make another, purchase to run my business in, say, 10 days. They can raise their hand at any time in the process, and AvidXchange will advance that invoice for next day payment for them. So now all of a sudden, now they can manage their cash flow based on and manage their receivables and get paid on the time frame that they need to get paid to run their business. And that's been a really, kind of a, very successful offering that we've launched, and really excited about this year to continue to expand that offering.
So let me ask, when you advance that and you kind of raise your hand, what makes the person getting the invoice, what entices them to actually pay it? Is it just because it's prompted in front of them?
Yeah. So what we the secret of this is that AvidXchange actually pays that invoice on behalf of the buyer that's going to be paying it. And the reason why, because we have all the advanced analytics, because we have both the supplier and the buyer on our network. And so we have perfect visibility into the history of all the historical transactions. So we feel really good about, hey, we know that this is supplier, it's a monthly invoice, it's ongoing, it happens multiple times a year. And we can see the history of when that invoice has been paid. And it gives us a lot of confidence around, okay, it's a good credit risk for us to advance that, because we know that buyer is going to pay it on average in the next 22 days, as an example.
That's kind of like an accountant advancing tax return for you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Okay. So now this really piqued my interest, by the way. So because collecting money is the biggest struggle for mid-market business owners, because the reality of it is, I think that the market you're serving, from what it sounds like, people are very good at selling their services, but sometimes they're not great at, it asking for the money in general. Right.
Exactly.
So, do you guys have a fee that you charge for that, or how do you work that? Because of course, there's a cost of money, right?
Yeah. So what we, have is a fee, and it's kind of we use on average it's about a 2% fee, and it's really kind of the equivalent of a common payment term of say 2% net 10. That means if you have a 30-day invoice, a lot of suppliers say if you pay me in 10 days rather than 30, you can deduct 2%. And so it's that same concept, but we say you can raise your hand and we'll pay at any time, even faster than the 10 days for the same 2%.
Well, and with interest rates rising right now, that's like half. It's better than using a credit line too. I mean, you're probably coming in at less than half of their credit line.
Yeah, I mean, so it becomes a very, kind of what we're doing is really leveraging a common industry practice around kind of that 2% net 10 concept and applying it to all the invoices that a particular supplier may have that they want to advance. And the beauty is that they can pick and choose which invoices they want to advance, to best run their business.
Well, Michael, to me, it sounds like, I mean, you're giving them more than a automation software. You're giving them a partnership, because at the end of the day, you're helping them bridge a gap. Helping them make payroll, helping them buy commodity, whatever keeps their business running and flowing, and they're gonna stay a customer for a long time with you. As a matter of fact, I bet your customer retention is very high. I would just assume,
Yeah, so absolutely. We have what I call kind of gold standard, kind of customer retention, and it kind of goes back to, and this is where I'd say kind of culture of a company actually kind of creeps into the business in terms of business performance. And that is, we have a set of core mindsets that we want all our teammates to adhere to. And one of those mindsets is they're passionate about making our customers successful, right? And whether it's, the people in the accounting department and legal or on the front lines of supporting a customer, we want everyone to be passionate around, making that customer successful. And that leads into, then, high customer retention. But one of the things that, I always get a kind of chuckle out, and I always, advise people is, when you're buying software, it's one of those things, everyone tries to, kind of go down this deep kind of feature function analysis and comparison of what a particular one system, versus another system does today for their business. And it's important to make sure that, the core functions and features that you need to run your business are there. But I always encourage people to say is you really need to look at kind of the long term about where's your business going and what kind of partner do you want to best support your business in the long term, because implementing these solutions is a long-term decision. Even though you may have kind of a 1 year or a 3 year kind of license, it's pretty painful to displace your accounting system like every year, right? That doesn't really happen. So you want to make sure you're picking the right long-term partner that has the shared, common vision, to support your business on a long-term basis. And that's actually, as important as the specific features or functions that they may have in the product today.
Yeah, and I'm going to take an opportunity to expand on that because, my brother and I were faced with the same sort of decision. We just changed. We're going to use a different software company at our company right now, and we had to decide, okay, where do we want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? Well, we want to push $50 million. Okay, well, what company is going to get us to 50 million? Not the company that can do what we need to do today. It's what company is going to help us achieve our next milestone, so we don't plateau and then have to do it all over again. Because you're right, it is painful, and most people don't give enough value to that onboarding process to take the time and do it. Going back to my friend Gabe, my fractional CFO, we were just talking about onboarding today, so yeah, I mean, those are the things that it's great you brought that up. I want to also circle back. You brought up your culture. One of the questions I was going to have with, 1,500 employees, how do you keep everybody moving in the same direction? So you already started to kind of hit on it, right? So it sounds to me like not only are you trying to come up with some core values, likely, and you can expand on this for the organization itself, but core values to support the businesses you're serving. So I don't know if you want to maybe bring up.
Absolutely. And I think in today, having culture and the DNA is, I believe, kind of critical to success. So we're a software technology company, our core teammate are engineers, and engineers in today's environment, they can pick and choose any day of the week what company they want to work for, what kind of work environment they want to be in. And that dynamic isn't going to change. And I think that's very positive actually for companies like AvidXchange, because it allows you to showcase your culture, and culture actually matters. And so for us, we've kind of resonated around kind of our kind of core values related to business boil up into, we want teammates to have three core mindsets. The first one is a mindset around growth. And that means that they want to work in a growth company. That's very different than, say, working at, Bank of America or a big bank, as an example, because things change, and to be able to work in a fast-paced environment is not for everybody. So we want people that want to embrace working in a growth company. At the same time, along with growth, we want to have teammates that embrace growing themselves. We don't want to have people that are in the same position that they got hired for 5 years later, 10 years later. We want people that have the mindset of they want to grow their careers. They want to grow their skill sets, their leadership capabilities. And so that's really important for us. So one is teammates with growth mindsets. The second one is around being connected to their teammates. And so what we mean by that is there's very little that gets done at AvidXchange that operates in a silo without deep cross-functional work across multiple teams. And so to have people that enjoy working cross-functionally and being connected with their teammates is what we recognized over time is a critical element. Especially in the technology business, you end up with some technologists where they just like to work by themselves. They don't like to interact with other people and things like that. They may work for lots of other companies, but that doesn't work very well at AvidXchange. We like people that want to be connected, and they enjoy working cross-functionally. And then the third one is the one that we kind of already kind of highlighted is that they have a passion to make customers successful. And so those are kind of the three mindsets, and that kind of rolls up the various different core values that we have in the business as well.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that person that does want to just kind of work by themselves?
Yeah.
Do you use the values to let it sort itself out, or do you try to coach them? Because sometimes you just can't change a personality. So what do you do, Michael?
Yeah. So I think so one of the things we've gotten better at over time, and today we're pretty good, is as you use that as a screening process on the front end, and to really articulate the type of culture, work environment that we have, and the type of work they're going to be doing, and the importance to be able to have dependencies across your teams, in terms of the work that they're doing, and to see if that's something that's energizing for them or something that they're dreading, right? And it's pretty easy to tell that during an interview. Now that's today's state, and that's we've gotten pretty good at kind of hiring for people with those mindsets on the front end of the process. Certainly over time, as they've been evolving, we've had people that necessarily that didn't meet those mindsets. And so what we try to do is to give people the tools on how they can develop, learn those type of skill sets. And what we found is that either they want to develop and learn those skill sets. In that case, that's great, because that's kind of being growth minded. And then you have teammates that choose not to. And those are great examples of saying, hey, listen, like they're probably not the best people to stay being part of AvidXchange, because we're not delivering the type of work environment that they're looking for. And so it kind of becomes a little bit self-selective, is what we found. But we, as long as you're kind of growth minded, we have lots of good examples where, growth and somebody's self-development is really uncapped.
Awesome. So when you ventured from your original vertical that you started, did you have any surprises as you got into different industries that maybe have played out better for you guys in your growth? Because every business has those like pleasant surprises, right? So
and kind of one of them was, it was kind of like anti to our strategy, which now has become core to our strategy. And what I mean by that is, when we kind of started branching out, we said, we want, where can we go where the software works exactly like it works in real estate, so we don't have to make any changes to it, right? and we don't have to change any of the business process. And then, we added construction, and we said, oh, it kind of, a lot of, things work and feel the same, as the same type of, a lot of same type of products, things like that. But then there's a thing called the lien waiver. And like, holy shit, like, okay, well, real estate companies, for the most part, and paying, they don't have lien waivers. It's more of a construction thing. But okay, we have to kind of create, some functionality around how construction companies manage a lien waiver, right? And then we went into, kind of, another example would be, the homeowners association or condo association management market, where it kind of looks and feels a lot like real estate. But then when you find out, oh, the approvers of the invoice actually aren't internal at the HOA management company. Typically, they incorporate board members that are, guys and ladies that are retired, living down in Fort Lauderdale, that have, nothing else to do except for, analyze invoices of their HOA. But they're part of the approval process. So now how you create approval process for people that are outside of your organization. And so what we found over time is, although we wanted it to work exactly like it did in real estate, by being able to understand the nuances of the different business processes and adapt our software to to accommodate those nuances, it actually created a massive barrier to entry for everybody else, because everybody else was saying, oh, if it doesn't work exactly like our software works, they're not a good customer. So we were able to really become the market leaders in the different verticals in the 8 different verticals that we're in, because we were kind of really smart and understand the unique business process of each one of those verticals and kind of configuring our software to accommodate some of those nuances.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I like to use analogies to people that listen, and by doing that, you basically just change the diameter of your pipeline, right? Your sales funnel. So
Right.
now you have more flow through. You're using the same platform, but you just have more flowing in, and then probably more referrals and gaining market share. So so that's amazing. And then that goes into that growth mindset, right? Because now you have the people on the team innovating, providing those new ideas, right? So that's great, and I'm sure it's very rewarding to your people, because you
Yeah.
accomplish that, and it's like, look at what we did together. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
absolutely.
So what were we're talking about some of the easy stuff, right? But what were some of the challenges that you saw? Because I think everybody thinks when they see successful businesses that it's just all free flowing ease, right? But there are
Yeah.
things you have to work on and pivot and adapt to. So what are some challenges that you were faced with when you were really getting this rolling?
Yeah. I mean, so I think, you said it's never kind of a straight line, right? In
Yeah.
every, successful business that I've been part of, whether, as a founder, whether as a kind of a, board member, advisor, it's never a straight line. It's always kind of this, zigzag, kind of stair step approach, right? You kind of figure something out, you get a little acceleration, you run into the next, kind of, peak, and you're like, oh shit, how am I going to get from here to where I got to go? And you have to go back and kind of figure things out. You kind of stagnate for a little bit, kind of figure it out, and you have another trajectory of growth. And so, to me, that's how every successful, business is built. And so one of the things that, I encourage, companies to do, and this goes to kind of just early stage investing, is what I kind of figured out in any early stage company, the business that you're investing in never really ends up being the business that becomes successful. It always morphs and zigs and zags in some way. And so what you're really investing in is the people, the leader, and the team. And if you have a great leader and you have confidence is going to kind of figure out those pivots along the way, then that's the key. That's the asset that you're investing in, and they'll figure out the business. And that's kind of, for me, in any early stage investing that I've done over my career, the successful companies were the entrepreneur and the teams that are able to figure out those pivots, versus the ones that kind of didn't make it, were the ones that were kind of headstrong into their original idea, and they kept running into walls and they never pivoted, and they just kept trying to do the same thing over and over again, and eventually died. And so I think that's, kind of one of the biggest, kind of learnings. And we've, really, and, people ask me all the time, how do you come up with the pivots? And to me, that's the easiest question, because just go and talk to your customers. your customers will tell you things that you can do to help them help their business, right? And so, whenever we've been in that situation, we've always deployed, let's go talk to our customers. Let's bring 30 customers to Charlotte and ask them, what else we can do to help their business. And it's amazing what you learn when you ask 30 customers on how you can help their business, right? And you'll find that there's nuggets that you take away from every conversation, and then they start to triangulate, and also now you have a solution that actually adds a lot of value. So that's, and so it's not rocket science. And in a lot of ways, it's just, basic things, but you have to be flexible to be able to understand, okay, maybe what I thought was the solution, isn't the full solution. Let my customer help me, kind of modify it and morph it into what's really going to make it successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, speaking of being successful and running successful businesses, and you brought up a lot of it's based on leadership and the team. Are there some other businesses, because I know the answer to this already in my research, but that you started up, founded, and you basically, anything that you pieced from those businesses that you brought into your current venture?
Yeah, I think as you go through life, right? There's like every kind of experience you have, and one of the things I kind of tell people today, and is you don't actually learn a lot when things go really well. And all the learnings that you have, occur when things go really bad. Right. And you run into that brick wall and you fail at something, and all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, those were the learnings. Right. And so to me, the success in business is not getting it right all the time, but it's like learning from, what didn't go well. And then how do you quickly apply that to the next thing that you're doing? And so, one of the things, right or wrong, we had a kind of a good experience around delegation. Back when I was in college, I actually started a painting company. Original context was to, paint houses over the summer to make enough beer money. I went to school at Georgetown, so to buy beer in Northwest DC, to stay there for the summer. And one thing led to another, and we got the contracts to paint all the George Washington University and the Georgetown University dorm rooms. And of course, my answer was yes. We can do that to the facility managers. And then when I went back to my dorm room and created my my Lotus, at the time, Lotus 123 spreadsheet, I quickly realized I needed, 3 shifts of, student painters working 24 hours a day in order to get all the stuff, everything painted for the students to come back in the, at the end of the summer. And so I didn't understand the form of delegation. So working 3 shifts a day, I thought I had to manage all 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. And so I went 3 or 4 days without sleeping. And all of a sudden one day kind of passed out in the hallway at George Washington University because I literally couldn't stay awake any longer. And I quickly recognized that if I'm going to actually be successful in getting these dorm rooms painted this summer, I better learn the art of delegation. And so, I was a sophomore in college learning that experience. And I think, that experience taught me something which I think is one of the biggest barriers to entrepreneurs. And that is one of the secrets that I've learned is that my leverage point is when I hire people that are better than me in whatever discipline it is. Whether it's, better at me at doing, the accounting, bookkeeping, better at me at doing the sales, better at me at managing our software development. And that's the leverage. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a scary thought because they think, oh, well, I'm the leader, I'm the founder, I need to be the best. And what I've kind of figured out is the leverage point is when you hire great people around you that are actually better than you are. And guess what? It makes you a better leader.
Well, and I think one of the things that I found as an entrepreneur, because I agree with you wholeheartedly with that, is most of those people that are really good at that, they have zero desire to be a leader. And that's the one thing about being an entrepreneur that you have to embrace is say, okay, what, if I'm the face of the company, or if I'm the person that can go out and get on a podcast or go to any trade show or any gathering and speak about what we're doing cumulatively as a team, this is something that the entrepreneur is typically very good at. And there's a great deal of value for them to be there. I mean, at least speaking for myself. And then having other people make sure they're kind of looking for my blind spots, because if you're out there, or if I'm out there, kind of spreading the word about what we do all the time, I'm not there doing the books.
Yeah.
So my bookkeeping is going to suffer, and then if you're doing that bookkeeping at 11 o'clock at night, well, you're going to get audited, and that's not going to be a good thing either, so yeah, no, I think that's a great point that you make. So being that, you've been involved, I see, like going through some of the things, you've founded InfoLink, which was a different software company. You were an associate at Summit Partners. Like what's, to me, and this is for me asking, like, when did you realize it was time to exit that and start something different?
So one of the things that, it goes back to, the painting company at Georgetown. I didn't start it to become an entrepreneur. In fact, I probably didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I started it because I saw it as a means to make, some beer money over the summer.
Yeah, get your beer money, yeah.
Right, exactly. Pay rent, have some money left over to buy beer at the Tombs in, Northwest DC. But what I kind of learned from that is I got a lot of energy out of, being an entrepreneur and running a business. And so then I went to Summit Partners, and what we were doing is we're investing in entrepreneurs, right? And we're evaluating. And what the phenomenal learning experience was that I got exposed to lots of different industries and lots of different business models. And one of the things I took away was the power of, you don't have to like invent new technology overall, but just take kind of technology and apply it to a business problem that's still, manual, paper intensive, that hasn't been automated, and use technology to automate a business problem. And so the first company, you referenced InfoLink Partners, was automating the tax billing and tax collection functions for municipalities, and which, they were sending out, paper tax payments, and, doing all the manual work related to how they collect tax payments, from, people that lived in those communities, around automobile excise taxes, real estate taxes, and other taxes. And so we automated that function. And then what, kind of the next business was around automating how companies that hire technology skill set workers, how they manage the hiring process, how they manage the visa process. And again, it was very manual process on, the process that recruiters did in terms of, their hiring process, lots of spreadsheets, things like that nature. And so we helped to automate the hiring process. And then, AvidXchange was, taking, kind of a paper intensive, manual intensive accounts payable process that hadn't been automated. And how do we create the tools to automate it, get rid of the paper invoice, get rid of the paper check, create efficiency for those teammates that were doing that function so they could do other things. And so what I've learned is there's a lot of power in taking technology, that exists. We're not creating, new databases, new, coding structures. We're taking existing applied technologies and creating solutions to automate manual business problems. And I kind of learned through that Summit Partners experience the power of doing that. And then along with that, I had the itch I really enjoyed being an entrepreneur. So I took a lot of those learnings and then left Summit and went to the dark side and became an entrepreneur again.
Well, and it's funny you say, because you're talking about, software and stuff, but ultimately we've been doing the same thing with automation that exists and just solve problems in outdoor landscaping. And one of the things, to expand a little bit on what we do and what makes us different, and there's a parallel to what you just said, is I think in our industry, so I'm automating lawn mowing and hopefully snow blowing and brining and all the stuff that we do in the outdoor world, because there's just not enough people that want to do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
But the biggest hurdle people have is, instead of them just using what's already here, they're like, I'm going to make this machine, and it's going to be really big, and it's going to do this automatically, and then they miss the point, right? It doesn't need to be really big if a person's not sitting on it, right? So there's all sorts of stuff that exists that just needs to get repurposed. So it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing with all the software and the things you're doing. It's like it's there, you just kind of repurpose it. And so I'm doing the same thing, except really with hardware. I'm taking automatic hardware and making it work and adding a service component, so just tell you a little bit about what we do. But so, that all being said, we could talk about the business side of you probably for hours, but I always like to find out about Michael Praeger outside of your work life. So, tell me a little bit about your family. And when I say family, start with mom and dad, or do you have brothers and sisters? Because I always like to kind of know about somebody's upbringing. Because for me, just to kind of lead this out, I'm from a family of 5. I actually run the business with my brother. So there's 2 entrepreneurs in the family, 2 nurses, and a principal in high school, right? So
there you go.
It's kind of fun to see, family background, and then if you have a family now, and talk about them.
Yeah. So, no, absolutely. So I grew up in Wisconsin, so in the Midwest, and both my parents were school teachers. So, kind of had the, that academic experience. So no exposure really to kind of the business world. In fact, I remember, when I left Summit to kind of start my first software company, I think my mom said, well, that's interesting, but how long are you going to do that before you go to law school? Because, don't successful people, aren't they either lawyers or doctors? Type of thing. And I'm like, no, I think I enjoy, being an entrepreneur and running a business. And so that's how I grew up. I was an only child. And then, so today, I met my wife, Cindy. She's also an entrepreneur. She's been involved in running a number of different companies. And she now is kind of focused on kind of board related work and become as a board member for other technology companies. And then we have 1 son. So we also have 1 child, and he is actually almost replicating kind of my experience, where he went to Southern California and had kind of dual degree in the business school and the engineering school, and now is doing venture capital in San Francisco. So he's kind of, starting his career in kind of the same way I did. So that's a little bit about, our family background. What I like to do is, I'm pretty passionate about, business, and I call it the great game of business. And people ask me like, Mike, you made a bunch of money, and why do you still work as hard as you do? And I'm like, well, first of all, it's like it's not work. When you get up every day and you solve interesting problems and you work with great people, it's like going to the adult playground and playing in the sandbox all day. Right. Yeah. And that's so that's how I think of it. But one of the things about my passion is so I live on Lake Norman. I grew up on Lake Michigan, and then on Inland Lake, Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin. So kind of lakes and boating are in my blood. So I love boating. I'm kind of a boat collector. Everything related to water sports is what I do, and so. My newest thing I kind of learned in the last year is e-foiling. So I've now kind of got proficient at e-foiling, but anything related to any kind of water sport is something that you can sign me up for any day of the week.
So what's e-foiling?
So e-foiling is, you're going to have to Google it, but it's you're on a surfboard, and there's like about a 36-inch mast that goes down under the water with a little electric engine on it. And then basically based on your weight, kind of distribution, you can kind of get it to foil up. So the board is like, 30 inches out of the water, and you just have the little engine left in the water, and you're basically hydrofoiling, and you can cruise around the whole lake that way.
So it's kind of like the windsurfers that I just saw in Fort Lauderdale that are up out of the water, but instead of using the wind to pull you and keep you there, you're using you're using a little motor, and then what you're missing is all the waves and the chop and all the other stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. In fact, my e-foil instructor is based down in Miami Beach, so I could hook you up with them, and you could go and learn e-foiling next weekend.
Well, that would actually be awesome, except I'm leaving for Pittsburgh, unfortunately. But, and I say unfortunately because I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now, and it's beautiful right now. So a couple things I want to ask. So we're at in Wisconsin. So my house is in Illinois. Where in Wisconsin did you grow up? Because I'm building a house in Door County right now.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, you may kind of drive past it on the way. It's in Sheboygan or Kohler, so kind of Kohler, Sheboygan.
So, yep, I know exactly. I do drive right past it. Yep.
Yeah, and it's funny as when I was growing up, the Kohler company. Both my grandparents worked at the Kohler company for over 50 years, and one of the things that that they Kohler did is they did a phenomenal job of kind of creating a culture for their employees and amenities, and then they got into kind of the golf course business, and the first golf course was Black Wolf Run that they built. And now it's turned out to be this golf mecca right around Kohler with Whistling Straits and a number of the other courses they built. And it's a really, it's a great story about how Kohler's really, built the community.
Yeah, because they built like employee housing, right?
Yep.
Isn't that a lot of those houses Kohler
built for the
people?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it is. It is a pretty amazing story up there, and for people that have never driven up there before. It's like you're driving. It feels like you're just in farmland. As you're going north, Lake Michigan's just on your right. You keep looking for little glimpses of the lake, and then all of a sudden, here you are. You're in Kohler, the Sheboygan area, and it's like boom. There's a city right here. Yeah, there's a bunch of buildings, a big flagpole, and then you can
stop for a beer and a brat.
Yeah, well, I should actually. I do never stop. I'm always so excited. I'm sure you've been to Door County. I always am literally. I'm in just like hammer down mode and get to Door County because it's like a destination in itself. Yeah. So
it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, and I also love boating, and I think that people don't. There's so many people I know in Illinois that are always like, "Oh, we don't have anything in Illinois," and I'm like, Lake Michigan is like a hour drive. We have Lake Michigan, Yeah. So, and it sounds like you agree with that. So you said you like boating. What kind of, do you have a boat? Do you,
yeah, we have a whole fleet of boats. We have 2 sailboats and 4 power boats.
Oh yeah. Well, I just have one, so I don't have the fleet, but one is enough for me. The amount of maintenance there is in boats, it's one is good.
You need a maintenance team.
Yeah. So what size sailboats? So this, to give you a background, I have done some sailing in a Lightning class sailboat, so just a little 16-footer. So I do understand how beautiful and awesome sailing is. So that's why I want to learn about it.
So that's funny you said that because I do have Lightning myself. So that's one of them. And these are great, lake sailboats. And the other one is a Melges 15, which is actually made in Wisconsin, and they race those in the Olympics. And it's great because it has, you can actually sail it myself, and it has, the spinnaker, the jib, the mainsail, and I can sail the thing myself. So that's a lot of fun. And then, power boats, we have all kinds of use cases from some mahogany boats to, the Nautique G25, kind of water sport boat that we use to an Italian Donzi racing boat.
Awesome. Yeah. I keep my boat up in Door County, so it's been pretty nice. That's what actually made me build the house up there. Is I was staying up at Skipper Bud's in Sturgeon Bay all the time, and I was like, I just got to live up here. I went up there so many times and boated so many times. So the something else I wanted to say. It's ironic you have 2 parents that were teachers, but I find myself as an entrepreneur, and I want to see if you feel the same. People always see it's like, okay, you're part of business, but I think as an entrepreneur, I'm really a teacher, right? I think it's ironic your parents were both teachers, because I feel like a lot of what you likely do is teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, maybe, kind of the other word for it is coaching. And so what I find myself doing today is, that's probably, north of 50% of what I do every day is, I'm in, meetings with my team, and we're, kind of, coaching around, how to solve different problems, sharing my experiences. And I kind of use, kind of, I call it the Gestalt method of, kind of teaching from the standpoint of, I share my experiences, but I don't tell them how to solve the problem. And I allow them to, take care, take from my past experiences and apply it to whatever they're trying to solve themselves. And I find that's a much more powerful way and rewarding way for, kind of teammates to grow and develop.
So how did you meet your wife? Because I think it's ironic you're both entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So we were both in the business school at Georgetown, and Georgetown doesn't have any social, fraternities or sororities, but they have a professional one. So each of the schools has their own kind of fraternity that they're co-ed. And so the fraternity of the business school She was actually 2 years older than I was, so I was pledging as a sophomore. She was a senior, and she got assigned to be she was my big brother, in the fraternity, and that's how we met. So
Good thing for the fraternity then, I guess, huh? That's awesome. So I also see you're part of YPO.
yeah.
I have some friends. My friend Gary Rabine is part of YPO or was, and then I think what you graduate from YPO to what's the next level up?
YPO Gold.
YPO, yeah, and then his son Austin Rabine is also part of YPO, and they keep on trying to get me to do it, but I just haven't done it yet. So I saw that was also pretty cool. So if you want to
Yeah.
speak on any of that,
Yeah, I mean, what I think about it, especially as an entrepreneur or leader of an organization, is sometimes it can be a lonely existence because there's very few people that are part of your daily life that really understand kind of all the pressures of what you're going through in terms of running a business, right? In terms of and I'm kind of reminded about this, every day I drive into our office and I have to park in our parking deck. And, we have a 6-story parking deck at our campus here in Charlotte. And we have about 1,700 teammates now. And, there's lots of cars in the parking deck and there's lots of car payments. And it kind of makes you really, pretty quickly realize the responsibility that, Mike, you better not screw this thing up. And, from, those pressures to, investor pressures to, kind of executing the business. It's not easy, and there's not a lot of people in your kind of regular world that truly understand kind of those complexities of what it takes to run a business. And so what I found is actually it's really powerful to be part of peer organizations of, like YPO, where there's other entrepreneurs, CEOs, presidents coming together, and you're kind of sharing similar experiences and problems that you're facing, or kind of situations that you're in, then that people can apply to their own business in some way. And I kind of feel that there's a lot of power in terms of those type of peer groups.
Yeah, Michael, I think it's actually kind of funny you bring that up, because I've told people that sometimes for me, it's like I find there's days where I feel like if I ever wrote a book, it would have a title of like, the rise can feel lonely, or, because at the end of the day, everybody looks and says, man, it must be great to be Michael. It must be great to be Joe. But when you brought up the pulling in the parking garage and seeing all the car payments, I do think there's a difference between the business owner that sees the people that work for them like extended family, right? That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Like all those people are I can't be successful without them, and we're all successful because of each other. So yeah, you do take those stresses on yourself, and you don't have a lot of people to share them with because people just don't understand it because they haven't lived it.
Right.
And I want to expand on that because if people are listening to this and they feel that way, they should know there's tons of people that feel just like you do or just like I do, and it's doesn't make it weird for them. It's the reality of the world we have created for ourselves, because at the end of the day, we created the world that we live in. So with that, we're getting to that time of the podcast where I mean, obviously things are great. You're running a successful company. What do you see the future of where you're going? I mean, obviously you're going to keep growing, but you had said already, to you, it's just like being in a playground right now. So
yeah,
I don't think you're looking for any sort of exit retirement strategy, but eventually we all have to relax one day. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So, I mean, one is, I don't think I'd do very well retiring. And to me, it's, the energy in terms of, working with great people and solving interesting problems. A day doesn't get any better than that. So, when I think of, what's next at AvidXchange, what's crazy is that we're the industry leader today. And again, we're approaching about 10,000 customers in the US. And within kind of our target definition of how we describe the middle market, there's about 435,000 companies in the US between 5 million in revenue and 1 billion in revenue. And we're ready to leader. And we are approaching 10,000 out of 435,000. So we're just scratching the surface in terms of, the type of business that we can be. And one of the things I challenge my team about is, yes, every year we have our financial targets and where we're going as a business, but there's not that many industries actually, in the world where you can participate and truly be in a company that's changing the way an industry works. And what we're doing is we're changing the way people, manage their payments, where businesses manage their payments, and so that's kind of a fun experience. I've been, run a couple other software companies, and none of them had, kind of anywhere near the market opportunity or the ability to really change the way an industry works. And so I think there's a lot of energy related to, for teammates that, to see the impact of, being in a business that's actually changing an industry and leading the way an industry works. And that's just as powerful as some of our, financial results that we're trying to, targeting each year.
Yeah. No, and that's fantastic. And I mean, you brought something up, and it's how I'm trying to lead my team right now too, to say, okay, this is how many middle market businesses there are. This is how many we have an impact on. Because I think a lot of times, if you can't explain that, like when I tell people right now, I want our company to be $1 billion company.
Yeah.
I'll tell people that, and people hear, and I'm sure you deal with this, Michael, or have dealt with
Right.
it. People hear $1 billion and they're like, yeah, right. It's like, no, seriously, I'm going to be $1 billion company. But then when you actually can say, okay, this industry has $100 billion in potential. We already account for X amount of the market share. There's only this many competitors. So it's all on how you slice up the pie, right? At the end of the day, they're going to end up somewhere. Yeah. So let's make them end up with us, right? And now that's how you get your team to believe in it, right? Because now they can actually see, wow, Michael is actually onto something here. So I think that's fantastic. And then how do you keep it, people coming your way is by innovating, right? So do you have any cool things that you want to talk about that you guys might be launching to do that? Or right now, are you in your verticals? I just want to give you that opportunity if it's there.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say about innovation is, I actually, think that, kind of the late Steve Jobs said it really well. And we actually have a full length, kind of floor to ceiling kind of mural of Steve Jobs in our lobby area, with this quote. And that is, that the responsibility of an industry leader is that you actually have to lead the industry in innovating. Because if you're not going to lead the industry in innovation, you're not going to be the leader for very long. And so we take that really seriously, and actually becomes hard to do the bigger you get, because the bigger you get, you become more risk adverse, right? To making kind of big bets on innovation, and that's one of the things I really encourage our team to do is how do we continue to lead our industry in innovation, and continue to be that innovation leader. So with that, we're a public company, and so there's lots of, kind of there's some upsides of being a public company. There's also some downsides, and that is you have to be careful what you talk about, before it becomes released to the public. But one of the things that we're really excited about, for this coming year is what we call kind of the next generation of our invoice accelerator and offering that we talked about earlier, and some of the things that we're doing to make it available to as really a great financing vehicle for all our suppliers to be able to advance invoices to be paid early. And so that's one of the biggest innovations, along with really kind of scaling some of our go-to-market strategies related to cross-border and what do we think we're doing about, kind of some of the international opportunities that we have outside the U.S. and how we're paying suppliers on an international basis, are some of kind of the, the innovations that we've talked about, kind of publicly that, are really just coming to life for us right now. And we're really excited about that.
So Michael, when you started this, did you instantly know you were going to go public?
No,
because that's actually,
not at all.
Yeah. Cause now I wish we had another hour to spend together. Cause this might be where you and I just have to talk on the side one of these days. But, if you could in 15, 20 seconds or, a minute, how how did that progress the way that it did?
Yeah. So I mean, so I think so we were actually pretty late in our existence, and we were a pretty big software company when we first raised our first really institutional round of capital, which was in 2015. And Matt Harris from Bain Capital Ventures, along with some of just, kind of other blue chip investors like the Nigel Morrises, who was the founder of Capital One, participated in putting together kind of a $240 million kind of financing investment for us. But we are 15 years into the business and a pretty sizable software company already at that point. But one of the things then we knew that for this group of investors to get the kind of return that they needed to get, we would have to do, one of two things. One is either, sell the business at, say, 5-7 years later, or to go public. And so there was no one, myself included, that was interested in selling the business. We're like, we're still in the, kind of not even out of the first inning of our, of our 9-inning, kind of a great game of baseball. So we're not ready to, pack it in yet. So, going public was the kind of the right decision. And also, in terms of thinking about future acquisitions, things of that, there's a lot of benefits of being a public company. But one of the things I will say to people is you definitely have to build your team with the right skill sets to perform as a public company, because there's lots of stuff that can really sidetrack you. And that's not, I'll say, necessarily efficient for the business that you spend time on. And I try to eliminate, or limit, I should say, how much time I spend on those things that are not productive to growing the business, and to basically, have a team of people that can best manage those type of things, in order to be a public company.
Yeah. So this part fascinates me. And I do have to tell you, if you want to mentor a guy like me, because like I can tell you where I'm at right now is, I tell people this all the time. I love what I do too much to want to sell it. So it makes raising capital very difficult for me, because I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up too much right now, because I like being the visionary and pivoting and doing all the deals. But sometimes I feel like more people want to invest in my company than buy a robotic solution for my company, So that I sit here and I think like, man, people see the opportunity. People would invest in what we're doing, but I've never done what you've done. So then the trepidation is, well, how would I be the person that runs that type of a company? I don't run public companies,
Yeah.
So,
but it's around surrounding yourself. So, the first thing I did is, in, kind of 2015 timeframe, was go out and hire a CFO that had public company experience, right? That had already taken a couple of companies public. And so we could build the right kind of financial rigor, financial muscle, and so this was, good. This was 7 years before we went public. So I think we did a lot of building, with the goal of being a public company at some point, that we knew that when we were ready, that, we didn't have to start the building process then, that we already were, a lot of ways operating like like a public company, had the, the processes, the rigor around being a public company. And it's all in the people. So I would say, as a leader, you don't have to be. I've never run a public company before AvidXchange, so it's the first time I'm doing this. But I've surrounded myself with people that have done this before.
yeah, no, this is fantastic. And honestly, this is why I enjoy doing my podcast so much, because, I hope podcasts are an education for the people listening, but it's also an education for me, and like I said, what you just said in the last 5 minutes or so of this podcast for me is huge, to help me with some decisions that I have to make. So, to put a little exclamation point on what we've done today, what in the end for you, Michael, everything you're doing, what do you want your legacy to be, right? Everything you've been trying to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, kind of my mission is to enable, kind of those, teammates around me to be able to, achieve their dreams and what's possible. And if I can provide a vehicle for them to grow, achieve their abilities and to achieve their dreams, that's really rewarding.
Awesome. Well, Michael, I really appreciate the time you spent with me today. I hope
Yeah,
you appreciated it also.
absolutely. No, you're welcome to come up to Lake Norman in North Carolina and hang out with me anytime. We'll do some boating. I'll teach you the latest in the latest water sport, and we can talk about the great game of business.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I really appreciate it.